Exposed. Written by Suzana Thompson. Narrated by Lauren Sweet. Chapter 6. I was grateful for two things the next morning. My parents weren't up yet when I left for school, and I didn't have to take the bus to school. Last night, I had talked Mom into letting me borrow her car with a story about a bunch of us kicking off our senior year with an after-school celebration at the candy shop. It was a local diner-type restaurant run by a woman named Candy. Since Mom always wanted me to be a part of the social scene, it had been easy to convince her that I needed the car. I had wavered over wearing the bridesmaid dress to school, but watching Mason say his last line in the video he had sent to my phone was intimidating enough to make me cautious about disobeying him. It was like he had been speaking directly to me with the words he had chosen from the book. I believed now that making that video hadn't been about corroborating the homework story to my dad. Mason had wanted to send me a message. Sending my nude picture to me would have been even more effective, but I was relieved that he hadn't. I didn't need that humiliating reminder of how I had exposed myself to Mason. It was bad enough to remember him showing it to me without having it displayed before my eyes again in vivid detail. The embarrassment of being seen at school in a hot pink, mermaid-style bridesmaid dress paled in comparison to the threat of being seen completely naked by everyone. When I arrived at school, though, my cheeks burned as people laughed at me. "I didn't know hookers were so classy," our current queen bee, Alicia, commented snidely. "Your boyfriend wanted me to dress up," I retorted, the words leaving my mouth as a surge of resentment toward these people surfaced with my long, simmering desire to strike back at them. An ugly expression momentarily diminished her beauty. "What'd you say to me, bitch?" Tyler blocked her from my view as he stepped in front of me with a grin on his face.
"Good one, Ella. I'm glad to see you've decided not to hold back anymore and do whatever the hell you want. Who says you've got to wait for prom to wear your prom dress? By the way, if you're looking for a date, I'm your man."
"What the hell, Tyler?" Alicia protested. "Are you trying to get a disease?"
"Don't worry about it,"
he replied dismissively, without turning to look at her.
"Ella's got somebody better than your boyfriend now." "Yes, she does,"
a familiar voice said crisply. "What the actual fuck?" Alicia swore angrily. The murmurs got louder as Mason approached me, but I was speechless. He was wearing a freaking tuxedo. My former preteen self would have swooned at the sight of him looking like her fantasy groom. But I was stupefied. What was this? Alicia's crude question was justified. His enigmatic expression gave me no answers about his intent.
"Ella,"
he greeted me stiffly, with a strangely formal demeanor. "Oh my God," a girl exclaimed loudly. "This is just like Pretty Woman." That ridiculous statement pulled me out of my stupor. "Why are you wearing that?" I asked.
"I put it on for you,"
he replied. That didn't explain anything, and I didn't care to stand there and question him in front of everyone. I walked past him, but he followed and fell into step with me.
"Did you go out with Chase Sinclair?"
he asked. I stopped and turned to look at him in astonishment. How had he figured out that poem was about Chase?
"You did,"
he stated as he studied my expression.
"So he only kissed you?"
I shook my head. "It wasn't me."
"Then why'd you write that poem about him?"
he questioned suspiciously. My former friend was secretly dating him. The poem was... I shut my mouth as embarrassment washed over me. Why was I telling him all this?
"It's good,"
he said, and then stunned me again by quoting it word for word.
"Frozen heart chills the summer sun. First kiss remembers drowning lips. Rose halted in mid-bloom, petals falling like tears. Secret sinks in silent sorrow. No sweet smile tomorrow. Dream dies beneath murky depths. All tragedy by time is kept.
I hadn't read the poem since I wrote it, but it sounded like he had accurately quoted it. He seemed to have a knack for memorizing things, judging by this and the fact that he hadn't had to glance at his lines for the video yesterday. He was also astute enough to deduce from my vague references that my poem was about our classmate, Chase, who had killed himself 2 years ago by jumping off a bridge. It happened during summer vacation, and I had seen Alice sitting listlessly by herself on a bench in the park. She looked so depressed that I approached her to ask if she was okay. "He's gone," she said, her eyes beginning to fill with tears. "I can't believe it, Ella. I can't believe he's really gone." She started to sob, and I sat down beside her and tried to comfort her with a hug. Eventually, she confided the whole story to me. Chase had been popular and the life of the party, while Alice was the quiet girl who got good grades and kept mostly to herself. Nobody would have guessed that Chase would ever notice her, and he would have gotten flack from his buddies for dating a nerd. "He didn't care about any of that," she told me. "But after what happened with Brooke, I didn't want—" I understood that she didn't want to be on the radar of the popular crowd again. Brooke and her posse had been the ones to chase Alice away from me. With her shy nature, she couldn't deal with that kind of relentless public attention every day. She had withdrawn from me with a heartfelt apology and a suggestion that I should ask my parents to transfer me to another school. I had refused to let Mason run me out of school. "I don't know how you can stand it," she had said. "The way everyone treats you, and all those awful rumors he spread about you. I tried to tell people it's not true, but they won't listen." Thinking about that now, I realized what was so different about Mason now, other than the tux. His gaze held no antagonism as he looked at me with a speculative expression. Just as I became aware of that, Addison's outraged voice hijacked my attention. "Are you fucking kidding me?" she yelled as she stormed toward us. "What the hell is this, Mason?"
"It's the first day of school," he replied, pissing her off even more. She trembled with fury as she spoke. "Why are you dressed like that? With her?" "I don't have to explain myself to you,"
he stated. She stilled, and her eyes narrowed at him. "No? You think you can use me to get her and dump me just like that? You get what you want and I get nothing? Hell no. You're going down, Mason. Right now." Her gaze shifted from him to scan the hallway. "Mr. Nichols!" she shouted to get the teacher's attention. While she was causing a commotion, Mason pulled me aside.
"I deleted it,"
he told me urgently.
"They won't find anything. It's just her word, but she never saw it."
"You have to get him away from Ella," Addison exclaimed. "He's got a naked picture of her and he's using it to blackmail her."
"She's lying,"
Mason declared as he strode toward her and Mr. Nichols while I stood frozen in horror. Mr. Nichols eyed him with a grim expression.
"Give me your phone."
Mason immediately pulled it out of his pocket and handed it over as my heart pounded in terror.
"She's lying," he repeated. "She's mad that I broke up with her and she's trying to get me in trouble."
"You never broke up with me, you cheating asshole!" Addison yelled furiously. Mr. Nichols frowned at her, and I could tell that she had lost credibility with him. It helped me regain my composure enough to hold myself together when he called to me to come to the office with them. When he left us inside the main office to go talk to the principal, Addison took her anger out on me. "You're such a stupid slut! Look at you in that—" "Young lady!" the receptionist exclaimed sharply as she got to her feet. "That language will not be tolerated here." "Whatever," Addison retorted, and slunk down to sulk in her chair. Mason gave me a pointed look before beginning to speak.
I guess coming out as a couple like this was a bad idea. We were kind of insensitive to Addison's feelings. I'm sorry, Addison.
"Fuck you," she said, earning another disapproving glare from the receptionist. "They're going to arrest you for that picture. They don't give a shit about you being homecoming king."
There is no picture,
he said calmly, while my stomach twisted up in knots.
There never was. I just told you that so I could spend time with Ella without you getting suspicious.
"They're going to find it," she said with great satisfaction. "Even if you took it off your phone, they'll search your computer and everywhere else you could have a copy." He was unfazed.
Did you ever see this supposed picture?
Her confidence faltered, and I glimpsed doubt in her expression. It gave credence to Mason's claim that she hadn't seen the picture. His gaze shifted from her to me, and his eyes bore into mine.
Nobody has seen this picture because it doesn't exist.
I received his message loud and clear. He was saying that nobody else had seen the picture. He and I were the only ones who had definite knowledge of its existence, and he wanted me to play along and feign ignorance. I wanted to question him about what he had done with it, but I couldn't in front of Addison.
"Mason Sumner?"
the principal called out as he exited his office. Mason promptly stood.
"Yes, sir,"
he said as he walked toward him. They went into his office while Mr. Nichols came over to us.
"Mr. Delaney will talk to you soon."
Looking relieved to be free of our drama, he walked out into the hallway just as the first bell rang. I longed to escape too, but I also desperately wanted to know what was happening inside Mr. Delaney's office. Mason seemed so sure that the picture wouldn't be found. He claimed to have deleted it, but could I trust that he was telling me the truth? I was really grasping at straws to rely on his word, but I clung to the hope that he'd had a change of heart about me and decided to get rid of the picture and stop blackmailing me. The fact that he'd worn that tuxedo so that I wouldn't be in the spotlight by myself was a sign that this could be true. "I knew you were a boyfriend stealer," Addison told me. Aware that the receptionist was listening, I chose not to respond. That sent Addison off the deep end. Before I knew what was happening, she had slapped me. I put my arms up over my face and head to protect myself as she kept hitting me with her open hands. The receptionist was shouting, and then the blows stopped. I looked up from where I was hunched into myself and saw that Mr. Delaney had pulled Addison away from me. The security officer came sprinting into the office in the next instant as Mason crouched down in front of me with a concerned look on his face.
"Are you okay?"
he asked. "Yeah," I said as I lowered my arms. The moment was surreal, and I wondered if I was having some kind of bizarre dream. I was sitting in the school office in a bridesmaid dress with Mason at my feet in a tux, and I had just been in a fight over him.
"Officer Collins,"
Mr. Delaney said.
"Please remain here with Addison while I talk to Miss Chase. Stay here, Mason,"
he added.
"Yes, sir."
Mason got to his feet and extended his hand to me in the classic gesture of a gentleman helping a lady out of her seat. Still caught up in the unreality of the situation, I took his hand and let him tug me up. I looked down at his hand holding mine, and he let me go like I had chastised him. Still in a daze, I took steps toward the principal and ended up sitting in a chair in his office. When he closed the door, it shut out much of the weirdness and brought me back to reality.
"Ella,"
he began in a compassionate tone.
"are you all right?"
"Yes, I'm fine," I replied.
"Addison will be dealt with,"
he said.
"But first, I need to know about the situation with Mason Sumner. Has he been blackmailing you?"
This was my chance to get back at Mason for everything he had done to me, but it would mean exposing all the sordid details. No, I answered, following the script he had given me. He's my boyfriend. Addison made that up because she's jealous. Mr. Delaney continued without questioning that, since I was apparently corroborating the exact story Mason had told him.
And there was no nude photo of you?
My heart lifted in relief. His question confirmed that he hadn't found a naked picture of me on Mason's phone. No, I said. She made that up too. He nodded in agreement.
She had no right to hit you, and she will be disciplined for that. If you ever have any problems with her again, come to me right away.
I will, I promised, eager to be done with my first ever visit to the principal's office.
Would you like to go home and change? Your dress isn't inappropriate, but...
Yes, I exclaimed, jumping on the offer. Oh, sorry. I apologized for interrupting him and hurried on, rambling in my haste. We thought it would be fun to dress up as a couple because people didn't know, but it's probably too much and, yeah, I want to change.
All right. Which parent should I call to come get you?
My face fell. Can't I just drive home real quick? I drove my mom's car. He shook his head.
I can't send you home during school hours without a guardian. I'm responsible for your safety.
I'll stay here then, I decided. My mom can't get me without her car, and I don't want to bother my dad at work with this.
Okay. You may go to class now. Have the receptionist give you a pass.
Okay, thanks, I said as I stood up.
Tell me if anyone gives you any trouble,
he said, as he also stood up to walk me out. I will, I lied. He didn't know that people had been giving me trouble for years, and the worst culprit was the one I'd just passed off as my boyfriend instead of nailing him to the wall like he deserved. I realized that I had missed my only opportunity to get revenge on him, but I was too relieved about the disappearance of my picture to care.
Give Mason and Della return slips to class,
Mr. Delaney instructed the receptionist.
I'll see Addison now.
That's bullshit, she exploded. If it's not on his phone, then he's got it stored on his computer. Call the police. They'll find it. My heart was back in my throat, but Mr. Delaney dismissed her ranting.
Settle down right now, Addison. Ella has refuted your accusations, and the police can't get a search warrant without proof or a victim. You, however, have violated school policy on fighting. Come into my office.
Addison scowled at me as the security officer escorted her toward the principal's office, but she seemed to have realized that even a verbal attack on me would get her in more trouble, so she pressed her mouth shut. Mason walked out into the empty hallway with me after we got our passes. I let him out of view of the office before I spoke. When did you delete it?
Right after I showed it to you,
he said.
I had a feeling Addison might pull some shit like this, and...
And what? I asked when he trailed off and shoved his hands into his pockets. He rocked back on his heels before planting his feet on the floor and making direct eye contact with me.
I didn't want anyone else but me to see you like that.
His words shouldn't have affected me the way they did. They shouldn't have made heat rush through me. But the look in his eyes gave the words an intensely sexual possessiveness that was extremely hot. Nervously trying to break the suddenly overwhelming tension, I asked him where he got a tux so early in the morning. The heat left his eyes.
It was my dad's.
Oh, I responded awkwardly. He pulled his hands out of his pockets.
We should get to class.
Right, I agreed, glancing down to pull my schedule out of my purse.
Since we're supposed to be a couple now, we should act the part.
My head snapped back up in surprise. You want to pretend we're dating? His expression became unreadable.
Yeah, pretend. It'll look suspicious otherwise.
Right. So...
We'll act friendly when we meet in the hallways. Sit together at lunch.
Sit at the same table at lunch? I questioned in alarm.
It's what couples do.
He nodded.
I'll save you a seat.
No. I shook my head. No, I can't do that.
Why not?
He asked. Because your friends are there. All the people who hate me.
They don't hate you,
He said.
They've just been following my lead, but they'll accept you once they see that I have. In fact, it's already happened. Since you were at my party, Josh and Tyler assumed that you're in with us now.
Just like that? I asked, starting to get irritated. They've been treating me like shit for years, but now I'm in overnight? For that matter, what made you suddenly get a personality transplant? You've always been a complete asshole to me, so what happened this morning? Why'd you show up in a tux? Why weren't you in your regular clothes, laughing at me with everyone else?
Because you might not have deserved any of the shit I've done to you,
He said.
You're not anything like I thought you were. Your poems.
My poems? I cut in incredulously. You mean all I had to do was put together a few rhymes to stop you from being the dick of the century? His lips twitched like he was trying to hold back a smile.
The dick of the century?
Shut up, I retorted in annoyance. It's not funny. You've been a total asshole to me from the first minute I met you.
I have,
He acknowledged.
but I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt now.
Well, that makes it better, I said sarcastically.
Hey, you two better get to class,
Officer Collins told us as he came walking down the hall toward us, having apparently just come out of the office. Right, I clipped out and began to walk away. Now that I was free from the fear of exposure, I was starting to get pissed. If Mason thought that one nice gesture could make up for all the rotten crap he had done, he was very mistaken.